Are India, China, and Russia fighting against each other for influence in Central Asia? Interestingly, all have bases in Tajikistan. Yes, now we know. Yeah. Should India improve its ties with the Russian led CSTO nations? What's the full form of that? We'll see. Especially in defense cooperation to keep an eye on China. The Quad focuses more on the Indo-Pacific region. Russia needs India against both the US and China. Okay, let's look at Central Asia. The map. Where's the map? There is never an episode of any of my live streams without the map on the screen. We need the map to orient ourselves. Here is the map. Now we are staring at the Indian Ocean. Wonderful. Let's go to Central Asia, which is essentially the old Uttara Madhya region, which once belonged to our people. Yeah, once. Maybe in the future, we'll see. Okay, this is Central Asia, which essentially is north of Afghanistan. Up to Afghanistan, it's part of the Indian subcontinent, and culturally, it's not Central Asian. Then you have even Tajikistan is actually not Turkic. Tajikistan is an Indo-Iranic nation. Yeah, most of the people. But if you look at the Xinjiang region, which is currently occupied by China, then if you look at Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, um, and all these nations, it's all Central Asia. Some people like to include northern Afghanistan into that as well. I don't, but whatever. Okay. So the question is are India, China, Russia fighting each other for influence? So first of all, let us disabuse ourselves of the notion that India has much influence in Central Asia. You only have influence if you have a direct land access to this place. Yeah. And our land access to Central Asia has been cut off since 1947, 1948. Thanks to the British and thanks to our wonderful leaders who did nothing to change the status quo, whatever was imposed on India. So India has no land access to Central Asia. If we take back POJK, then we will once again regain access to Afghanistan, our historical access to Afghanistan. Maybe we should take a little bit more than POJK, because the Wakhan corridor is a very mountainous region. If you want to build roads, it's really, really hard to build highways and railways in the Wakhan corridor. So we need essentially more than the Wakhan corridor, more than POJK. We need a little more, maybe the northern slice of the temporary artificial nation of Pakistan and all that. Yep. So if we regain land access that has been denied to us for the past 80 or so years, then we will start having an influence in Central Asia. First of all, we will be able to start helping out the Afghans more substantially than we are right now, and so on. So right now, India has, we could say, minimal or insignificant influence, direct influence in Central Asia. Obviously, all the Central Asian nations are favorably predisposed towards India because India is a non-hegemonic, non-threatening nation. Yes, nobody fears India, which in a sense is a good thing because everyone's open to cooperate. Of course, it's also a bad thing, but that's a different story. So and as you say, there are all three nations have bases in Tajikistan. Now first understand this: when it comes to Central Asia, the former Soviet republics, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, etc., Tajikistan, today Russia regards this entire region, these former Soviet republics, as part of their extended strategic neighborhood. They will not tolerate any other nation encroaching into their strategic sphere of influence, strategic zone of influence. They regard these nations as The Russians regard these nations as their exclusive zone of strategic influence. All right, that's how it is. And the Russians conduct military exercises with almost all nations on a regular, ongoing basis to maintain those ties and to ensure that these nations remember who is the who is essentially the boss. That's how it is. So so now if India has two air bases in Tajikistan, or one, or whatever it is, we have gone through that. Yeah, there's the Aini air base and the Farkhor air base. Aini is definitely operational, Farkhor maybe not so much. So if India has air bases in Tajikistan, it is only because the Russians have allowed it. That is how we have to understand this. Had the Russians been not open to this, it would not have happened. The Tajiks would have said, no, thank you, India. We are not in a position to allow you to open an airbase here. So because Russia has acquiesced to this arrangement, that's why it's happened. And the Chinese also have a military base in the region of Tajikistan, the Pamir region, which the Chinese consider to be disputed. They have a military base close to the Afghan Wakhan corridor. So the Chinese are eyeing the Wakhan corridor for a variety of reasons. They always have this expansionist mindset. So now I'm not sure how much how happy the Russians are about the Chinese military base in Tajikistan, but maybe the Russians also need to, mollify, pacify China and keep China on their side. And there's hard negotiations that happen, and the Chinese must have extracted this pound of flesh. So it's good for India that we have these two footholds in Central Asia. We have very ancient relationships with the region. That's a whole different story. But influence apart from that is very less. The air bases in Tajikistan that India has are only because the Tajiks are happy to have that. Yeah. So we obviously have a good relationship with the Tajiks. Apart from that, we see, if you want to, let's say I want to go to Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan. you know most Indians don't even know about Kyrgyzstan. It's right north of Jammu and Kashmir. You go to Ladakh, you go to Pangong or whatever. It's just, I mean, it's geographically kind of a stone's throw away, the nation of Kyrgyzstan, and Indians don't even know about it. If you want to take a flight to Bishkek, you have to go through Dubai or Abu Dhabi or whatever. There are no direct flights, as far as I know, between India and Bishkek, or India and Tashkent, Dushanbe. You have to go via, you have to take a circuitous route. So the people to people relationship is kind of non-existent. There are no direct flights between these nations, India and these nations. So it's something that India can work on. So the influence that India has is kind of less. Um, so it's basically right now more like a Russia versus China kind of game that's being played, and I'm sure the Russians would like Indian support in this, obviously, and India would be definitely willing to support Russia in whatever geostrategic endeavors they have in the region. We don't want the Chinese to encroach in this region and become more influential than whatever little they are right now. The Chinese obviously have this BRI thing, which they would like to revive. The past 3 years, it's been dead, the Belt and Road Initiative, and all of that goes through Central Asia. They already have some rail lines and all that go all the way to Europe. So it's right now a game of Russia versus China. If India is able to manage to change the geographical status in northern India, then India could become a player in Central Asia. Yeah, but until we do that, it's just it's all it's India's influence is minimal and essentially non-existent. We have good diplomatic relations with them. We have very friendly diplomatic relations with these nations. Yeah, but apart from that, there's nothing we are doing. If you want to have real influence, you have to start building roads that connect India to that region. You have to start building railway lines that connect India to that region. You have to start having daily flights between India, maybe from Delhi or Mumbai to, let's say, Dushanbe or Ashgabat or Almaty or Bishkek or all that. Hmm? Astana, Karaganda. Then you will have some influence. And that influence is typically constructed through infrastructure and supply chains and supply routes. We don't have that right now. Influence is not created through words. Geo, Geopolitical, geostrategic influence comes is an outcome of creating infrastructure. And India is currently not in a position to create infrastructure. So for India to start having an influence again after almost a century in Central Asia, we will have to reconfigure the geography of northern India, which is something that actually needs to be done on a priority basis. Yeah, we need to find a way, one way or the other, of retaking POK, taking some more territory out of the artificial nation of Pakistan, connecting once again, reconnecting with our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan. Yeah, and through Afghanistan, we can move into Central Asia, with obviously with the assent of the Afghan government and all that, which I'm sure they'll be happy to. So that is the deal. Should India improve its ties with the other CSTO nations? Yeah, we should improve our ties with all these nations. Let's start with having daily flights between India and these nations. Yeah, Central Asia is a wonderful place, beautiful place, good culture, beautiful scenery, mountains, lakes, valleys. You look at Tajikistan; it kind of reminds you of Ladakh. Yeah, so very very beautiful landscape and all that. So it's a great place for tourism. You open that up for Indians will be happy to go there. Indians nowadays go to so many different nations for tourism. Why not Central Asia, which is in our backyard? So why can't India start daily flights between maybe Delhi or Mumbai and the various capitals of the Central Asian nations? Why can't we do that? Why are we so um, not taking these obvious steps? So that's something we could do. and we can obviously start exporting weapons and all that to these nations if they want, or find other creative ways of improving our cooperation and coordination with these nations. So yeah, that's what I say should happen. But the main thing is we need to reconfigure the geography of northern India and make it more favorable for us. And that's something that needs to happen on a priority basis.